The one difference between last year's miserable Knicks and this year's playoff team is Jalen Brunson. The man single-handedly fixed New York's roster and is a perfect fit for their normally hard-ass coach. But he has been this way since high school as a 5-star recruit and the son of an NBA player. So how did he become so underrated? Somehow he went from the top high school star and a 2-time college champ to a second-round draft pick. There were 32 players picked before Jalen Brunson. So where are they right now? Every NBA team regrets passing on Jalen Brunson because the best experts said he could not translate to the NBA. Even the Mavericks underrated him, and Mark Cuban blames Jalen's father. But is he right? Yo, real quick, Prize Picks was cool enough to give just AM Hoops members a chance to win $1,000. So they're giving 5 of us that chance. So just click the link in the description and they'll give you a 6-pick flex. And if you hit it, you win the 1K. Jalen's dad is Rick Brunson, who played for 8 NBA teams in 9 years. He said, as a parent, I'm trying to prevent that for Jalen. You always want to give your son an easier path. So Rick mentored Jalen from the time he was 4 years old. He took him to games, meeting people like Steve Nash. His mom bought a Michael Jordan Wizards jersey, and when MJ offered to sign it, little Jalen told MJ, no thanks, I don't want to mess it up. But this wasn't a dad forcing basketball on his son. Jalen was unusually driven. As a freshman in high school, he was starting against big-time recruits like Jabari Parker and Jahlil Okafor. Jalen took his little school Stevenson to their first state championship as a sophomore, but lost to powerhouse Simeon. But they finally broke through his senior year. Jalen scored 30 of their 54 points for the chip. But although he was a 5-star prospect, none of the big schools recruited him. Jalen was smart, but he was small at 6'1" and unathletic. How would that translate to major college hoops? Turns out Villanova was a perfect fit because they love underdog players like Kyle Lowry, who went there to gain an edge over the one-and-done teams like Duke or Kentucky. They did that twice with Jalen as a starter, winning championships as a freshman and a junior. Not only was he a National Player of the Year, but Jalen was named College Player of the Decade. How is a guy like that not a first-round pick? NBA scouting reports focus on what he wasn't instead of what he was. Subpar physical tools and athleticism for an NBA point guard. Lacks the physical tools or outlier skills to have much upside beyond a backup. Just an average athlete overall, even at the college level. Certainly not in the NBA. What? College Player of the Decade? Doesn't that count for something? So every single team passed on him, going behind guys like Grayson Allen and Kevin Knox in the draft. But I want to get to all the picks in detail. Eventually, he was drafted by the Mavericks with their 2nd-round pick after they acquired Luka Doncic in round 1. But the Mavs didn't fully trust him. They chose to sign Jalen on draft night to a 3-year deal with a non-guaranteed 4th year. Normally, guys get the 4th year as a restricted free agent, but Dallas wanted to save a little money, betting Brunson wasn't anything special. As a rookie, he mostly came off the bench, which was different because he started all but one of his 116 games in college. Of course, Luka became an all-star as the point guard, but in year 2, Jalen got his chance when Luka hurt his ankle. The Mavs were barely hanging on to a play-in spot when they faced Atlanta in February. Back in his natural role as a starting point guard, Jalen exploded for 27 points, shooting 50% from the field and from 3 with 8 assists. So in year 3, he was so good as Luka's backup, was in the running for 6th Man of the Year. He averaged just 13 points and 4 assists, but shot 78% at the rim, which was beyond elite. Most big men aren't that efficient. But I thought Jalen wasn't athletic. He's not. He doesn't play fast like Russell Westbrook, but he doesn't need to. Jalen makes up for explosiveness with excellent footwork, strength, and IQ. He can stop and start in the paint to outsmart his defender. But in the playoffs, everything changed. He started well against the Clippers in the bubble, with another small guy, Patrick Beverley, guarding him. But once Pat Bev went to the bench, Jalen collapsed. He was shut down by LA's long defenders and scored just 5 points in 13 minutes a game the last 4 nights. He ended that series a miserable plus minus of minus 56. It looked like the experts were right. Jalen was good, but when it came to the biggest NBA moments, he just didn't belong. So the Mavericks refused to offer him a contract extension, but something clicked that offseason. He was so good to begin the year, Jason Kidd couldn't keep him on the bench. So after becoming a starter in mid-December, the Mavs went 23-11 with Jalen posting career highs across the board. But the Mavs still hesitated to offer him a new deal. They were waiting on some juicy trade to come through to pair Luka with a real star. But the offer never came. By the time they did offer him a contract, it was too late. They just played too many games with Jalen and blew their chance. Then in the playoffs, when Luka got hurt, Jalen kept the Mavs alive against the #1 seed Jazz. He dropped 41 points in game 2, and by that time it was clear he was getting paid. But reports said he was so offended by Dallas's lack of faith, they would have to outbid other teams. Meanwhile, the Knicks had a plan. They hired Jalen's dad, Rick, as a coach 1 month before free agency. Leon Rose was actually Jalen's agent before he became the Knicks GM, so he believed in his talent. So when free agency opened, New York signed Jalen to a 4-year, $104 million deal. The Mavs could have offered more, but Mark Cuban later said, things went south when parents got involved. Now, the Knicks were punished for tampering, but this totally ignores everything that happened before that summer. The Mavs handled Jalen Brunson horribly from the beginning. They burned him on draft night just to save $2 million. They had him for 3 years, but no extension. They clearly did not believe in him. But the Knicks knew, and Jalen led them back to the playoffs. Julius Randle regressed so much last year he was in trade rumors, but Jalen unlocked him to be an all-star again. It turns out Jalen is the next Kyle Lowry or CP3. Wouldn't get picked first like on the playground, but has the intangibles of a winner. So what happened to all those guys picked before him? Well, there was only one bust in the first 5 picks. It went DeAndre Ayton, Marvin Bagley, Luka, Jaren Jackson, and Trae Young. But Jalen is better than the next 4 picks. Mo Bamba, averaging 10 minutes a game on the Lakers. Wendell Carter, really good center in Orlando. Colin Sexton and Kevin Knox, who barely plays in the league. But Mikal Bridges and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander went back-to-back at 10 and 11. Those are elite late lottery picks. The rest of the lottery was Miles Bridges with character concerns, Jerome Robinson, who's already out of the NBA, and Michael Porter Jr. 15 to 30 in the first round has huge busts like Chandler Hutchinson, Jacob Evans, and Amari Spellman, but surprising stars like Anthony Simons and Robert Williams III. But the teams who really messed up are the Suns and Grizzlies, because they passed on Jalen twice to take Elie Okobo and Javon Carter. Now, I think in a 2018 redraft, Jalen would have been picked 5th in the lottery, also by the Mavericks. But one guy who hates the draft right now is Damian Lillard. He is demanding to trade Portland's pick for a star. So, Dame finally has a superstar teammate on the way. Check it out.